All right, we're getting to some really fun lessons right now. We're going to start going into urban design, and these concepts are really going to help you make your final project for the semester, designing your own utopia. So let's go ahead and talk through some things. So, what is urban design? And part of this is based around the belief that planners can really shape the city. They can have an influence in the way it looks, make it an awesome place to kind of live, work, and play. It involves like this kind of large scale organization of the city. And what this means is like the organization of entire buildings, massing, like how you put them together, and over a long time frame. So it's different from architecture because it focuses on an entire neighborhood. Like if an architect focuses on the design of a single building, an urban designer is more of like the design of something as large as an entire neighborhood. And urban designers are different from city planners because the city planner is going to deal with maybe like the whole city, right? The comprehensive plan that we talked about last week. But an urban designer is going to deal with just part of the city. So, like this picture I have for you up here is Battery Park City in New York. So, this is not the entire island of Manhattan, right? It's not all of Manhattan. It's just a piece of it. I mean, a big piece, an important piece, but it's still the designer would maybe like there's a whole design team for like just this Battery City Park project. So yeah, so that's just kind of give you a visual of what I mean by designers deal with a piece of the city. So most of the planning goals, you know, we've been talking this semester about planning and some of the goals of urban planning, they require urban design. So just to give you a couple examples of what we're talking about here is how would you accommodate multifamily units in single family blocks? You know, we talk about like a neighborhood or a block where it's all single family homes, but we have a need for more affordable housing, more multifamily housing. So the design, like at the design level, how are you going to put those multifamily units into a place that's dominated by single family homes? We talk about public transit, increasing density near public transit. That's like a goal that you would think about, some design implications of that. Another thing, how would you fit small businesses within residential neighborhoods? You know, kind of give it a mix of uses, like the design of that. Are you going to have permits that kind of like that allow you to convert homes into restaurants, something like that? Or is there a way to build different types of buildings to fit those businesses into more residential areas? Soften the impact of big box development. Big box development, this is stuff like your big box store, right? Your Walmarts, your Targets. You think of these national chains that need huge stores that are essentially big boxes, right? So, and this can have a really change the shape of the city. So, we don't really we want to soften the impact of having these kind of like big box store developers come in, just throw their stuff down. That's going to really scale the city in a different way. And so you want to create streets that function as public spaces. So it's not just a street for cars. Streets can be public spaces. They can be pedestrian friendly. They can be vibrant and lively and like cool places to be. So this idea of creating streets that are more public spaces. You want to increase connectivity and pedestrian access. That's kind of like a big goal of urban design right now. That cities be pedestrian friendly, that pedestrians have access, the connectivity, like you're connecting different uses to each other, um, and with the pedestrian mind. So it's not sprawl, right? It's not where you've got like all your residential houses in one place, and then you are required to get in your car to drive to school or to drive to shopping or any to work or something like that. So you want to increase the connectivity between different land uses and make sure that they're pedestrian friendly. And you also want to connect institutions to surrounding residential areas. Institutions can be really anything, schools, shopping, churches, really anything, connecting these to the residential areas. So those are just like an example of some goals that you can reach through urban design, how you're physically laying things out and the characteristics of your elements. Okay, we'll keep going. So the urban designer, I mean, think of this like the overall goal is you want to improve the quality of people's lives through design. And I know we take a bunch of different classes here, but this lesson is focused on improving the quality of people's lives using design. So instead of like our public policy class or some of our other classes where it's like, how are we going to make a difference in these kind of bigger issues? How are we going to improve the community through outreach? This is really focused on really these same kind of issues, these same kind of problems, these bigger society problems we talk about, but it's like how we're going to dream about how we can use design to meet those needs. And it's kind of cool because I feel like it's something a little different than you do in your other classes. And just want you guys know this is a career. To be an urban designer is definitely a career. It's a little different than the urban planner. It's going to be less political. It's more focused on, well, the design. I know that sounds redundant, but it's not quite as political as the urban planner, who has to kind of work with all these different interests and sell the plan to the public and kind of communicate the idea to the public. The urban designer is not going to be quite that political. A lot of urban designers are employed by developers. So whereas urban planners mostly work for the government, work for the city planning commission, these real estate developers are gonna have that are working on all these different kinds of cool projects. They're gonna need an urban designer. This is something very different than their architect. But you can also be employed by public bodies as well. So that's just a little bit, maybe some of you will want to go on and be urban designers when you graduate Dillard. So what is good urban design? You talk about good urban design, bad urban design. I mean, you guys kind of know what this is, even though you've never really thought about it this way. You're walking around cities or you're driving through or you're just someplace and sometimes you think, wow, this place is kind of cool. And sometimes you think, this place is annoying, this is hard to get around, I don't like this kind of place. Who designed this place? Who thought this up? But there are like some elements of good urban design. And so part of this is good urban design is, you kind of know it when you see it. It improves the quality of life through design. But I know that's kind of vague, but a little more specific is people should be able to move about in a free, safe, and pleasant way. The free, safe, and pleasant. You can move around, you feel safe, you don't think that, oh my gosh, I'm going to get hit by a car trying to cross this street so that I can get from the bus stop to the store across the street I'm trying to get to. This kind of it has a lot to do with the movement of people. Another question would be to think about, can you move about in inclement weather? A better example of this would be like cities up in the north, Michigan, all these states and these cities where it snows a lot. So like for a good chunk of time, it's gonna be snowing and there's gonna be ice and sludge and how can you move about in inclement, so like think of like the snowy, cold, wintry weather. So some of these cities have these pathways, these like pedestrian pathways that are elevated and indoors, right? So instead of having to go outside of the building and walk down the cold, icy street to get to the next building or to get to your car, public transportation, or wherever you're going, they have like this whole 5 miles worth, like several miles worth of just these elevated indoor walkways. And so that's just like think of a way of urban design. This is, instead of you have to go out on the snowy street, you have these walkways that connect to different buildings so that you can kind of move about when it's freezing outside. So another quality of good urban design, are there places for people to see other people and be seen? This is part of this kind of Jane Jacobs eyes on the street stuff, part of Williams White's social aspects of small places. It's just this idea that people want to see other people. Like, you want to be in public places because, I don't know, we like to people watch. Are there things to do? Are there places to go? Good urban design is if there's places to go, things to do, other people to see. This is like, think about when you want to go out and have fun, right? Isn't this fun? So really, it's just like this idea of places for the people. And another element of good urban design could be thinking about if users can find their way from one place to another without confusion or fear. Like, if you ever visit a place, can you get around? Like, are there signs that tell you where to go, what to do? Can you kind of find your way around? I don't know. Have you ever visited a city that you don't live in? Washington, D.C., anywhere, really. Like, can you visit somewhere and you can kind of find your way around without being too confused? This is an element of good urban design. Okay, so even going even kind of more in depth with this is, here would be a list of criteria. So if we're gonna kind of design our urban utopia, this would be like your checklist of does your community offer this? And so here's just a few criteria. One, unity and coherence. Do you have like kind of this coherent plan? Is it unified, or does it look all haphazard and crazy and doesn't make any sense? So unity and coherence. Minimum conflict between pedestrian and vehicles. So there should be, this is kind of like some of those garden city plans we looked at. This is one of their criterias where they had like the vehicle main thoroughfares on the outside, and then pedestrian kind of friendly walkways and park like recreation green spaces in the middle. So that would be an example of something that minimized conflict between pedestrians and vehicles. And that's just one example. Number three, like protection from rain, noise, wind, etc. This is the idea of like, if there's inclement weather, can you move around? I gave you guys the example of snow, but I know here in New Orleans you think, oh, every time it rains, Dillard's campus floods and I can't walk around. So that's kind of like would be like a design issue. Protection from flooding is certainly a huge design issue in New Orleans. But just this idea, thinking through kind of protection from the elements. Number four, easy orientation for users. This is this idea of, can you, like if you visit somewhere or even if you live there, can you find where you're going pretty easily without fear, without confusion? So easy orientation. You shouldn't have to like do all this extensive research to get around your city, right? You should be able to just kind of like walk outside and look around, be like, okay, I can kind of figure out where I'm going, what I'm doing. Number five is the compatibility of land uses. This kind of goes back to that zoning stuff we talked about and how the early cities, you don't really want your huge polluting manufacturing plants right in the center of your residential area or your restaurant row or something like that. This is this idea of compatibility of land uses. And it can also get more specific with your zoning. Like, you don't want to put your strip club right next to your elementary school. You know what I mean? So compatibility of land uses. But this could also mean putting things together that make sense. Like maybe you want right up next to your residential area. Maybe you want your kind of open parkland, like maybe a foresty type place right next to your housing, something like that. And so think about number six, availability of places to rest, observe, and meet. This is there's benches around cities, right? You go walk through parks or you walk through kind of like the Riverwalk has benches, and that's just an example. But this availability of places to rest, observe, watch other people, meet other people. This could be things like restaurants, food truck pods, places. Like you need, like I said before, you need stuff to do. You need places to just kind of hang out around other people, a reason to be there. And then number seven, creation of a sense of security and pleasantness. I know that's going to vary. Like people are going to have different ideas about what pleasant means, but people should generally feel safe and pleasantness. This like I said, is a matter of taste, but this could do with things like having enough trees. I don't know. You close your eyes and imagine a place you think is nice, a place you think is pleasant. This could mean including like a row of trees in your urban design. This could be making sure there's enough sidewalks. There's landscaping up against the sidewalks. There's not just a whole grid of traffic blocking your way. It can mean that you definitely leave spaces for things like fountain or urban art, anything like that. So that would be a list of criteria. So when you're kind of designing your urban utopia, think about this criteria. You come up with your plan and maybe go through this like a checklist to see how well your utopia meets this list of criteria. Okay, this is a quote that I pulled from your textbook because I thought it was pretty, I don't know, I liked it. So I'll go ahead and it's up here for you to read. It's in your book, the chapter on urban design. But thinking about this idea of for whom is your urban area designed, I've made you guys kind of tell me what social issues you're interested in, what type of population you think you might want to plan your city for. So this question I keep asking is like, well, who is your city for? So think about this quote. Urban design is not an exact science, for there is always the element of personal taste. One person's peace and tranquility will be another person's boredom and sterility. One person's excitement will be another person's soul destroying cacophony. The area that suits a single person in his or her 20s may seem quite unsuitable 10 years later when the same person has a spouse and two children. So I think it's important for you guys to